Fortuna Mining evidently wants out of the Burkina Faso business. On Friday, the company announced that they have entered into an agreement to not only sell their operating mine within the country, but their exploration assets too. Commenting on the matter, CEO Jorge Ganoza cited the increasingly challenging business climate within the country as a main reason behind their departure, which isn't exactly a positive sign for other operators in the nation. All right, everybody, let's dive in. Fortuna Mining has entered into a definitive agreement to sell off their mining interests in Burkina Faso. The sale is said to consist of their interest in Roxgold Sanu SA, which holds their 90% interest in the Yeromoko mine, as well as 3 other wholly owned subsidiaries that hold exploration permits within the country. The transaction will see the assets sold to Soleil Resources, which is a private operator that owns 3 mines within Burkina Faso, alongside exploration permits and their own drilling company. In other words, the assets have been sold to a local company that is fine with taking on the risk of operating within their homeland. Risk that Fortuna is evidently no longer comfortable with. In announcing the sale, Fortuna basically said that the rising business risk, on top of the fact that mineral reserves at Yeromoko only support 1 more year production, and that in-country exploration was previously halted, basically making the sale a no-brainer. And it helps them avoid an estimated $20 million in future mine closure liabilities, which seems to basically be the cream on top. Let's take a quick look at what exactly Fortuna is offloading here. The primary asset being sold is the Yeromoko underground mine, which entered production back in 2015 when it was under the ownership of Roxgold. The mine, alongside the Bo Usora gold project in Burkina Faso and the then development stage Segula gold project in Côte d'Ivoire, were acquired by Fortuna in 2021 with the $1.1 billion acquisition of Roxgold. Arguably, that transaction turned out favorably for Fortuna, with Segula now Fortuna's premier asset, expected to produce between 134 and 147,000 ounces this year and 160 to 180,000 ounces next year. Yeromoko, meanwhile, served as a great asset for Fortuna while the reserves were there. The mine last year produced 116,000 ounces of gold at an all-in sustaining cost of $13.59 an ounce. And this year, despite reserves slipping to 150,000 ounces or so, guidance called for production of 107 to 121,000 ounces, making it the second largest operation under Fortuna's belt. And the mine has a strong operating history. 2023 saw the production of 118,000 ounces at an AISC of $14.99 an ounce, while 2022 production, the first full year under Fortuna's ownership, stood at 106,000 ounces at cash costs of $15.29 an ounce. Outside of the mine, the sale is said to consist of a number of exploration assets that Fortuna had in country. But quite frankly, little detail is available on these assets. Prior to being acquired by Fortuna, Roxgold frequently spoke of high-grade assays from exploration being conducted at the Borosora gold project, found in the south of Burkina Faso. But Fortuna has said little about these exploration stage projects since the closing of that transaction years ago, with seemingly little follow-up work occurring. I guess they weren't as keen on operating in Burkina Faso as they made it seem when announcing the acquisition. So, what do the terms of the sale look like? Well, total consideration is expected to amount to about $130 million, which means Soleil thinks there's a lot more value to be had here. Upfront consideration is to be $70 million, while $58 million will be paid up in the form of a cash dividend by Roxgold Sanu. And on top of that, there's up to $53 million in value-added tax receivables that can be received upon certain conditions being met, the specifics for which weren't provided. The sale is also expected to be pretty quick, with the transaction expected to close in the current quarter. Closing here is said to be dependent on Roxgold issuing that juicy dividend, the Minister of Mines consenting to the sale, and your typical customary closing conditions. And that's about all the details we got on the entire transaction. All right, so let's wrap it up. Speaking openly, the sale here doesn't really appear to be driven by the performance of the assets. Yes, there's about 1.5 years left of mine life at Yeromoko, but the last update to the resource estimate was done back in 2022, with tens of thousands of meters having been conducted in the time since. Rather, it appears to be more of a case of geopolitics getting in the way of business, which has driven Fortuna to take a hard look at their asset base. They got a solid performance out of Yeromoko. It treated them well. But with the revision of the mining code last year, the juice isn't worth the squeeze when it comes to risking exploration dollars in this jurisdiction. At least not in Fortuna's view. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Guys, if there's stories you want us to cover, as always, let us know in the comment section. We do read all the comments. We appreciate everybody who gives us any engagement. Thanks for watching, everybody.